Hi, this is Mr. Abrams. We're working on proportions and ratios in 6th grade. Ratio is a comparison of two quantities. There's three ways to write it. So for example, if we're talking about eggs to teaspoons of oil, we have 1 egg to 2 teaspoons of oil. You can write it with a colon, 1 to 2, and then as a fraction form, 1 over 2. And this is the most typical for doing any type of computations for math. A proportion is two ratios that are equal to each other that are comparing the same things. So if you are comparing eggs to oil, you can't go to comparing ornaments to Christmas trees. Okay? That doesn't correlate. So here we go. We have an example. We have 1 egg to 2 teaspoons of oil. If I need 5 eggs, that means I will need 10 teaspoons of oil. So steps to be able to write these ratios and proportions. One, we're going to create a word ratio. That's going to keep us straight onto what goes on top, what goes on bottom when we're comparing. So for this, I'm talking about points to games, the number of points scored in a basketball game to the number of games. And so write it in a fraction format like that. Or just to keep you straight, abbreviate P to G, points to games. Fill in the appropriate numbers for points to games. I chose 300 points in 9 games. And then you're going to reduce the ratio if it just needs to be an answer in a ratio. To do that with this problem, you would divide it by 3. Divide by 3, top and bottom. It gives you 100 over 3. And that's the simplest you can get with that. But we're going to continue on and make a proportion, so we're going to set up a second ratio comparing the same items. We're going to use X to represent a missing value that needs to be found. So points per game said 300 compared to 9. We want to find out how many points it would be if it was 18 games, just as a prediction. So to do that, there's a couple of ways we can do that. For 6th grade right now, we're going to solve the proportions 2 ways. One with a table, or another way is multiplication or reducing. There may need to be a combination of both depending on the problem. So the example, John needs 8 screws for the installation of 2 shelves on the wall. How many screws will he need to hang 6 shelves? So I set up my word ratio, screws to shelves. There are 8 screws needed for 2 shelves. We want to find out how many it will need for 6 shelves, and the answer is going to turn out to be X equals 24 screws, and this is how we're going to go ahead and solve that using our table. We set up screws and shelves. 8 over 2 is our ratio, and you're just going to keep adding your ratio until you get to the value you want. So in the numerator, we're adding by 8. 8 plus 8, 16, plus 8 is 24. And then you add by the number down at the bottom for the bottom part. Plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6. We got to 6, so the corresponding value is 24, so 24 screws. You can solve using multiplication. Okay, the screws, there are 8 to 2 shelves. And I ask myself, well, 2 times what number equals 6? Well, 2 times 3 gives us 6. Okay, so whatever I do to the bottom, I have to also do to the top. So 8 times 3 equals 24. So X is 24. In 7th grade and 8th grade, you're going to use cross products to set it up and do a one-step equation. Screws to shelves is equal to 8 to 2 is equal to X over 6. You do your cross products, 2 times X over here is equal to 8 times 6, which is 48 over here. You divide because the 2 is being multiplied by an unknown number. So you do the opposite. You divide by 2 on both sides. That leaves you just an X left over. 48 divided by 2 gives us 24. And that is how we can solve for unknown numbers using proportions.